Well, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has raised the alarm that most departments and units in Nigeria's public universities are short-staffed due to the resignation of lecturers in search of greener pastures. The union stated that poor and delayed salaries, unpaid allowances, poor infrastructure, a lack of respect for the academic community, and seeming dwindling hope are some of the factors responsible for the resignation of lecturers in the past few months. Now, the chairman of the University of Ibadan chapter of ASU, Professor Ayo Akinwale, stated this in Ibadan. He added that Nigeria's public universities are in pitiable conditions, with stress and frustration visible in the faces of poorly remunerated lecturers. Oh well, that's the state of the universities, the state of Nigeria's institution of learning, as it is. Well, we have joining us in the studio, we have Mr. Ganiu Oluwashola, who is the managing partner, KJB Professional Services. And joining us virtually, we have Mohammed Abdullahi. Well, I must say, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right then. So let's stay with our in-house guests before we establish contact with our virtual guest. Now, this is the much feared theme where lecturers will have to go. Lecturers and the government have been at each other's throat for what one would say the longest time. How do you feel about the fact that Nigeria has come to this level where now it's not just our doctors that are leaving, lecturers are leaving? What does this portend for the generation who are the leaders of tomorrow?
Yeah, when we look at it, apparently it's not good for our system and it's not good for a country like ours. You see, when you look at it historically, let me take you historically.
Okay.
Like, Nigeria is being known as one of the well-bred educational place where you can get more education, where solid education. In the early 80s, if you travel out of Nigeria to outside the country to go and study, they'll see you as a dullard. Then if you're unable to pass your HSC, they'll see you as a dullard, that you are not capable, you are not sufficient enough, your intellectual IQ is very low. That's why you cannot cope with the Nigeria academic system. So you are looking for a kind of way out to be able to scale through. So, and when you see in Nigeria, then lecturers come from Canada, from UK to lecture in Nigeria, talking about how strong our educational system is at that time. And at that time also, if you're in the educational system, you are a big boy. Then people, when you get newly graduated from school and you get a job with NNPC or with NNPC or one of the top oil producing company, it will be like a pitiable situation. They'll say, hey, yeah, sorry, don't worry, you will still get a better job. Because everybody is eyeing to be a lecturer. At that time, lecturers are well paid. Every six months, they change their wardrobe. They change their clothing, they change their furnitures, right? And they have facilities they give to them to live. So at that point in time, they have time to read, to make researches, to study, and they have time to deliver good things too. And so when you look at those people that passes through those way, you will see that they are well grounded. Their intellectual capacity are very strong, because those lecturers, they are not distracted. At that point, that they are well known. But now it becomes like a pitiable sub. If you don't have any other job to do, you run to the lecturing field. And so it's not good for our system. And there's this Latin word. They say it, nema dot cod not abet. You can't give what you don't have. Right? So if our lecturers, if they are not well motivated and they are not even up to what, so they will not be able to produce an intellectually grounded student that could be able to compete favorably at the global space.
All right. Now,
Okay, so now, judging from the UNESCO's minimum annual budget of 15 to 20%, and then looking at least 8 years of Nigeria's educational system. So are you saying that it's not just that our lecturers are leaving, but that maybe we don't have quality people in the education system?
So when we say quality people, it's also relative, right? Yeah. It's also relative. So you now see that if our lecturers are leaving and the space, it's just like what happened there during the former president regime. Chris Ngige says that, oh, doctors, you can leave. Oh, those fresh graduates, give them the way. So you cannot compare experience with just knowledge. Knowledge with experience makes you an expert. That's why that when you see our people leaving the shore of the country, move to another continent or another jurisdiction, another country, they become one of the best because we have the capacity. At that point, okay, look at them in the global space, and you see those people that are making move. They are Nigerians, right? Because they know that not only that we are rugged, we are intellectually sound, and we could, if we have the all things being equal, ceteris paribus, and we have everything that could help us to be able to use our strength, we'll come out best, right? I think the person is not just that, once the lecturers are leaving, the people that we infiltrate into the system might not be, two things is that I do not have job, so let me see this as a safe haven. I don't have flair for lecturing, but I need to eat. I need to feed my children. Let me just veg into it. And at that point, is that because I'm not called for it, I'm not motivated for it, so I might not be able to give my best to it.
But then Asu mentioned something. Asu mentioned that even when they have qualified lecturers to fill in the space of people that have already left, that most of the times it takes them 6 months to a year for Abuja to confirm these lecturers to be given the job. So what could be the problem for that?
This now talks about our value system. You see, like a saying says that you don't appreciate what you have until you lose it. Yeah. So it's when you lose it, not say, oh, I would have safeguarded this, right? So if these people impact, that's why everything needs to be structured. Why will you be relying on arcane law, saying that for you to be a president, you must only need an SSC holder, right? If you appreciate, you see, nobody can be who they are today, truth be told, without the lecturer, without a teacher, because someone needs to teach them. They need to go through a process to become who they are, right? So at that point in time, this should be one of the people that should be given priority and to be taking their matters very important. And say, so at that point, if they have them on their table and they pass through due processes, they also have their due diligence to conduct. Or are these people fit for it? Are we putting the round peg in the round hole, or we are putting the round peg in the square hole? So if all these processes and this should not take a while for it to be achieved, and so once these ones are achieved, then we should be able to confirm them, not leaving them on their fate, because once they are not confirmed, there are benefits that are associated with being confirmed. So if they are not confirmed, the benefit they will not be able to they will not be able to enjoy it.
All right, so we have our virtual guest in now. Good morning to you, Mr. Abdullahi. Welcome to the conversation. Now, in times past, we have, in recent times past, let me put it that way, we have blamed lecturers for not caring much about the students, government has owed them. They've been struggling with getting their salaries from the government, and Nigerians have blamed them for not caring. We've seen cases where we've had strikes for 9 months in a 12 calendar year. We've seen cases like that. But here we are now faced with shortage. How do you feel? How do you react to this? And what do you think can be done in the immediate to salvage this?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Nigeria. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, clearly too. Go ahead, please.
I'll just take my analogy by saying, for instance, I know in the public universities, particularly the public universities in Nigeria, the salary of a full-time professor is actually less than 1,000 US dollars. I mean, and I mean official rate, not even the black market rate. I mean, it's actually less than 800,000 Nigerian naira as at the moment. And you want to tell yourself, what does it take to attain the position of a professor in the university? You must have done your first degree, second degree, doctorate degree. You become a reader, you become an assistant professor, and then a professor. All this, at least, no matter how brilliant you might seem in our kind of system, it might take another 20 to 30 years at least. So you see, within all these span of years, the experience, the investment, the time put in, the struggle put in, the many conferences, hours, and so on and so forth, and then your salary, I mean, is still less than $1,000. Let me say 800,000. So it's quite challenging, really challenging for lecturers to stay put. I mean, those people who are not doing this perhaps for the passion of it, it's quite challenging for you to have them stay back in the country where they can, I mean, they have better packages, even in some African countries to be candid. Yeah, I just came back from Uganda less than 2 weeks ago, and I met a Nigerian prof, Kampala International University, and one other woman that's lecturing there. So even smaller countries, you know, are not even necessarily Western countries. Smaller countries are putting our lecturers, you know, and they are paying them well. The condition of service is better. They just, you know, perhaps have a class once in a week or twice in a week. They have time to do some other research and so many other things, and then yes, they get better remuneration compared to what they have here. So where you have the condition of service so poor, it is very relative and very difficult to be able to retain the best in such field. It is not rocket science, and that's what we see here. So in answering your question specifically, I think it's simple. We need to actually have our universities run properly. I mean, when I say run properly, is the fact that they need to be very much autonomous, particularly the public ones. They need to devise means and encourage themselves to be autonomous from government groups. And if you do that, it means you have this, definitely perhaps in the beginning, it might be a bit challenging, and tuition fees might be a bit skyrocketing. But again, at the long run, you are creating an avenue for the universities to deliver better, to be able to cater for the welfare and well-being of not only the lecturers, all the people who work around there. So,
All right.
and then, hello?
I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, and then in the long run, because we are turning out quality and not only the quantity, those that the university system is turning out will create an avenue to have a balanced economy, and not what we have at the moment. So I think my opinion, we need to look towards that pathway.
All right, universities running autonomously. Let me pick it up from there now. We have a situation whereby government is taking away some level of subsidy given to higher institutions, and government is also asking that institutions remit 40% of what they get to the coffers of government now. And that in itself would mean that the universities will have to source for funds. Now, how do they source for funds? Increase tuition. And the students get to pay a whole lot more. And with what is going on in Nigeria, a lot of students are dropping out of school. We are seeing strikes. There was a strike in Lagos earlier in the year. There was also a strike in in another state, I can't remember exactly where now, where students were in Calabar. Yes, there was a strike in Calabar when the institution decided to increase tuition fees. And the students protested, saying, look, you can't increase it. It's becoming increasingly expensive to even go to school and get education. When we talk about the universities being autonomous, can we sustain that? I'm asking you now, Olushola.
Okay, that's a brilliant question. Okay, I'll take it from this angle. Honestly, that would have been the best way. You see, there's what we call PPP, public-private partnership. And when you look at, let's even go to the neighboring country or just jurisdictions. Most of the schools that the children there, even our people that relocated, they go to public school. The public school is a standard of the private school in Nigeria. Right? And when you look at, let's also go historically. You know, we must look at what's our past, our present, and how do we correct the future for us to be able to get a better picture. Awolowo came up with free education. Right? A lot of our leaders today, they enjoy free education. None of them paid for it. Right? And we talk about if you want a nation to grow, you want a nation to become stronger, you check through their education. A nation that their education is being perforated, is being affected, there might not be a future. Because it's when people are educated, you see development, you see research, you see innovations, you see people discovery. But if you are not educated, you remain at the bottom level, right? So I think, I think the best way to go, not only about increasing the tuition fee, that's why we have the government. You need to subsidize. These are things to be subsidized. Okay. These are things to be subsidized because if you don't plan for our future, in the long run we discover that there's no future anywhere. So the government need to subsidize it. There was a time the government discovered that we don't have enough money to run the educational system, and they came up with what we call education tax, tertiary education tax, which is 2% of your profit before tax, right? Which is your 2% of your accessible profit. So if it's 2% of your accessible profit, and take for instance, if your accessible profit is 100 million, right? And they take 2% of it. In other words, you are saying that you are giving a 2 million to the government, right? And the government now increases to 2.5. They now increase it to 3%. And there's some that the accessible profit is in billions. So the question is that all this money that the government is putting together into one bucket as a sinking fund, the question is that what are they using the money for? This is the money that the government says that we want to use it to subsidize education, to take care of our educational facilities. Then the question is that where is those money? And we cannot solve a problem by creating additional problem. Right? We still have some problem on hand that we are yet to solve. Then we are proving more education or more universities to be instituted, to be created, and to be established. It's just like a man that is living in a room that gave birth to 4 children, and the wife just got pregnant and gave birth to additional 8 children. He has not solved the problem at hand. So the question is that how should we solve the problem at hand? The question is that the money this money we talk about, the education tax, is not from the government. It's collected from the taxpayers, from individuals, from organizations that are running in a company, using their facilities also to create the social contract that the government has also broken, to be able to create a facility for them to be able to function. And they're giving the money to the government for them to be able to do and support the educational system. And the question is that where is the money? So we cannot keep collecting money from the masses and imposing additional problem on them.
So basically, government has questions to answer and government is to blame here.
You see, you need to help the masses if you want to empower. There's some people that don't have the money. Then we should subsidize them. Let them go to school. Let us arm them with necessary information and knowledge. There was a time people come to Nigeria for research. Nigeria was at the top. So the question is that what brought us to where we are today?
Big question. What brought us to where we are today? All right, Mohammed Abdullahi, go ahead.
All right, yeah, Mr. Abdullahi. The federal government mentioned that they were going to, the National Assembly proposed 32 more universities for Nigeria. Now, I want to ask if that's a good step in the right direction. We have our lecturers leaving, we have people overseas poaching our lecturers. Is that a good step in the right direction, or should we say it's a misplaced priority?
We are very funny in most of our approach in Nigeria. How do I do? We have at least, I know, we have more than 50 higher institutions in Nigeria owned by the federal government. If you put them together, I'm sure it's even way more. You have that of state government, and then now you have a lot more of the private institutions singing up. But the challenging thing is that those manned by the government are run poor. So why is the same government that is unable to fund properly, not even funding alone? Because when we talk about the running of university or running of any business, operations is not just all about money. You might have even all the money available and still run the business again if you are not a technician. So when we are not operating, running the existing government high institution properly, how are we then talking about like increasing the numbers? It doesn't make sense to me at all. At all. And that's why I mentioned earlier that we are very funny in our approach to things. Why not think towards quality rather than quantity? It should be a question that we need to keep asking ourselves. Rather than just bring up universities here and there, everybody, everyone wants to feel okay, we need 2, 3, 4, 5 federal government universities in a particular city. No. The existing one, how are they being run? So I think that's the most important thing. It's not a good idea for me at all, because we have so many challenges developing the existing public universities. I see no need for us to increase, particularly public institutions at the moment. But this, at best, we should allow, like the guest mentioned in the video, we should allow public-private partnership or even private investment, like what we've been having private institutions spring up here and there. I think it's far better for us than committing public funds to establishing universities that won't take care of, that have in another 2, 3, 4, 5 years we have the same problem and complaint of lack of welfare, lack of impact materials, and so on and so forth. But I want to go back to your earlier question. Talking about the way forward, how to run these universities. I mentioned earlier, I said granting autonomy, total autonomy to the universities, I think is the way to go. Now, when I mentioned total autonomy, people might think, yes, tuition fee might just go haywire. I don't think it's true. Let me give you an example. For instance, in the construction industry, road construction and so forth, I don't want to mention the plan, but I know government is giving concessions. Government is giving concessions to some certain brands in Nigeria to build roads, and then that will be taken up from their country. You can do the same with the educational sector. If you go to, for instance, from Lokoja or Badana, it was built by a certain company, and they are not paying perhaps the amount used in building that road is taken off as tax for what they were supposed to pay government. The same thing is here if you come to Lagos, Oseni, to Third Mainland Bridge, is being also constructed by this same company, and it is a tax incentive. We can actually do this for the educational sector, that we have companies who are willing to support research in our public institutions, who are willing even take, for instance, say we are paying the lecturers for the next 1 year on behalf of government. And that will be tax incentive. We can do that. That will also reduce the burden of people. So there are so many ways. For for the public institutions to run autonomously rather than just by increasing the efficiency of students. There are so many ways I believe. And that is the best for us, because when it is autonomous like that, these institutions are able to turn out the very best. There is competition among themselves, and even the management is doing a whole lot more than just education. Their strength, for instance, if it is if it's science, if it's art, or so, they are able to focus more on their in order to get a better incentive from organizations in society and even abroad. Why don't we have our money back, our company having a kind of standardized scholarship in all of our public universities? Is it not possible? Abroad, even in smaller countries, we have them where people who are benefited. Okay, for instance, in the University of Ibadan, about 3 or 4 years ago, one of the leading neurosurgeons in the world donated $1 million just to have a facelift of the university people and some of the materials needed. It was all over the news, So we needed a lot of this initiative that will take some of this burden away from the government, so that the university themselves can focus and see how to expand their income rather than just rather than just tuition increment.
All right then. Now let's look at psychology, the psychological part of things. We have a situation whereby lecturers not receiving enough, and they are also being, I will use the word loosely, traumatized by students driving exotic cars to school. I mean, some institutions even had to make a law that students will not park in certain places because they drive to school, they park in those places with exotic cars, preventing lecturers with their, the jalopy that they have to find spaces to park. That in itself, don't you think that would have affected the psychology of some of these lecturers? Because reason I'm pointing to that is the fact that ASU is blaming JAPA for part of the reasons we have a death of lecturers in Nigeria now, because a lot of them are forced to seek greener pastures in other climes. That's the situation. Now, I would like for you to marry that to the ongoing conversation of IPPIS, lecturers having unified salaries, and their own proposition of UTAS. What can government do to, synergize this and ensure that the pride of place is restored in Nigeria, so lecturers can, maybe those that have left may want to come back. You never can tell. Iluashola.
Okay, that's a good one. Honestly, I do tell people that Nigeria does not have problem of revenue. Nigeria does not have problem of resources. We just have leadership problem. Right. There was a time, former Prime Minister of UK, David Cameron, he said, if he in his own statistics, seeing the number of money that is being taken out of Nigeria to other countries, and Nigeria is still standing, he said, if it is in UK that such a thing is happening, that UK would have ceased to exist. In other words, he was still surprised that Nigeria is still standing and still doing well. Right. That's a by the way. And another, you see, it also has to do with parents and also the institution. There are some private institution. Once you come to school, irrespective of the kind of phone you are using, they seize it at the gate. You don't take it in. You don't intimidate even your it's not about the lecturer. The psychological effect to their contemporaries in school, it can make them to do and undo. Right at that point in time, it also has to do with parents. And remember, even when we were growing up, then you will be dropped at the school, and they'll go back and they come back and pick you. Right, so there's no issue of intimidation, and that's, by the way, I think the most also thing is that the Japa syndrome is not only affecting the lecturer space, the academic space, it's also affecting the medical space, even the institutional space. Organizations, they are losing their staff because of the Japa syndrome, and it's also about our economic situation in the country. As we speak, $1 to a naira is around 1,168 naira to $1. And in the early 80s, naira is stronger than $1. So invariably, that if you are earning 100,000 naira, invariably you are earning less than $1,000. Right? If you are earning 100,000, you are earning less than $1,000. So invariably, when you look at that like that, so I think the most important thing in this scenario, right? So the lecturers, their pay should be, they should be beefed up, just like and I also said,
should government now allow the UTAS in place of IPPIS?
You know, in that scenario also, it's also relative, right? It's also relative. The thing I should say that, right, unification is good, right? Let us have a unified salary, right? And also, I also think, in my own thinking, you are coming, you see, when we say we are appointed people, we are voting people into power, into the National Assembly, into the governorship position or this thing,
Elected officers, yeah.
These people, part of their criteria should be, number one, your children, their first degree must be in Nigeria.
Okay.
Right? You see, just as I said earlier on, Nema.com not a bet. You can't give what you don't have. If you don't feel my pain, you can't solve my problem. You need to be able to put myself in your shoe to solve my problem. So if the children, remember, let me also drag it back a bit, during the COVID period, when nobody was allowed to travel, that was when they discovered that our medical apparatus is at a worse scenario. Even the person manning there says that it wasn't aware that Nigeria is at a deplorable state like this. So if we allow them, that one of the criteria for you to come to power, your children must attend first degree in Nigeria,
you would ensure that you fix the place.
definitely. Okay, when the former governor of Kaduna State ensured that his son goes to the public school, check the public school, check the environment. It was a good place. The environment was good. It was because he knows that this is the school the governor's son is attending. Look at it. You will be, it's psychological. Your son will not be in an open roof school.
Of course.
Right? You will be able to fix it. So at that point in time, you feel the pain of the masses, and you ensure that everybody enjoy the benefit, because even when you are in office, the money you are spending is the taxpayers' money. It's not your money. So you must be able to use their money to their benefit.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Oluwashola Ganiu. Mohammed Abdullahi, in 60 seconds, can we get your concluding thoughts on this before we move on to the next topic that we have on our table?
The fact that I agree with my colleague in the studio that Nigeria's problem is beyond leadership, sir. Yes, we have a lot of challenging leadership whatsoever, but we are also a very poor country. Like you said, that we don't have revenue problem. I don't think it's right. We have a revenue problem because we are a very poor country. If you allow me to elaborate more, for 200 million people or 220 million people, we just have a budget, a paltry budget I will call for next year for $33 billion. That's very small. If you divide that simply, it means per head you are having less than $160 for a whole full year. And mind you, we will be borrowing almost $10 billion even to augment, to make sure we have that $33 billion. So we are a very poor country. Our biggest challenge is not that we are poor, but we are unable to, we spend on frivolities. Some of the things where we are supposed to spend on, we don't at all. And then we spend on, things that doesn't add value or anything to the citizen or the country. That's that. If you are on UTAS, the argument of government is the fact that they don't want to pay perhaps a particular lecturer twice or 3 times.
Yes.
Which is not right anywhere. Because mind you, for instance, everywhere all over the world, you have, for instance, a Harvard University lecturer who is being employed and paid by Harvard, for instance, is also paid a stipend by Cambridge because he's a visiting lecturer. You understand that? Perhaps he's an expert. He's the only, or he's a major expert in that field. They will also put him in other universities as a visiting lecturer, and then we get paid. So, but the government doesn't want that here, which is wrong. And I quite support, the Nigerian lecturers are being the ASU in that respect of UTAS. You can't make IPPS a kind of a blanket, over every one. For the Nigerian lecturers, I think UTAS is more and more relevant because, like I give the example, you can be employed by the University of Ilorin, and because you are an expert, there is no much expert in that field. You can give your service also to Bayero University in Kano, or even ABU in Zaria, or Nnamdi Azikiwe University once in a while in Enugu. So it's not a big deal.
All right then. Thank you very much. We have to anchor this here as we have another topic to treat. Now, up next on VOP this morning, PDP insinuates or alleges that a cabal has taken over the running of governance in Ondo State in the absence of the state governor. Now, will this revelation by the opposition make a difference? Let's discuss this when we come back.